of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Beware the Chistero. Chapter 157. Regrets. Part 1. Blinking awake with a yawn, Yagi Aizawa Toshinori stretched across his futon with a leisurely sigh before sitting up, his eyes fondly gazing around his dimly lit bedroom until they landed on the partly open door. Shouta always did that to ensure the sense of breakfast cooking would rouse into wakefulness, and so with a smile he rolled to a stand. He was in the main corridor. His eyes slanted to his son's room. With the door gone, he could spy Nato sleeping in a puppy pile of Itoshi, Mezzo, and Denki. He was walking through their open-plan living room, accented by large snuggly couches, an entertainment center, and other things that should be there but weren't, the kitchen in full view. His husband had his back to him at the stove that wasn't the stove. He was humming. The sounds of soup simmering, tamagoyaki sizzling, and coffee brewing filled his senses.
"Good morning,"
he called. He was stood behind the wider, thicker-than-usually breakfast bar, the lights overhead brighter than the windows that weren't there but should be.
"Shall I set the table?"
The raven-haired man didn't respond. He didn't move. Nothing was moving.
"Do you need some help? I'll miss you, you know."
Blinking, Toshinori could only tilt his head whilst the sizzling sound grew louder, or was it his heartbeat thundering in his ears, the thrum of his pulse quickening?
"What?"
he asked, his legs still not responding.
"Kitten, I don't know what you mean. I'm here. Are you all right?" "I miss you,"
the younger man replied as he turned around to look at him. His expression saddened as his nightwear morphed into his running gear. The clothes were dirtied, bloodied, torn.
"I'm not here."
Wait, what?
"Shouta?" "I'm not here, Toshinori,"
he continued as everything darkened all around them. The kitchen was gone.
"Speak soon."
He smiled, his features still sad as they had been when he'd hugged him goodbye at the airport 2 weeks ago, then, although his legs weren't moving.
"Wait, what? Where are you going?"
His partner's body was moving away from him, the distance between them growing by the second.
"I love you."
No.
"No!"
He breathed, his head shaking.
This isn't right. Shouta! Hold on! I'm coming!
He shouted, his right hand outstretched as the love of his life was pulled by some unknown force in the opposite direction, his body outlined by an ever-dimming light which haloed him. The shadows were cloying about his body thickly, roping around him, hiding him from view.
"No!"
He couldn't move. Why couldn't he move?
"No! Shouta!"
Holy shit, kid, watch out with that, will you? Banjo said?
What?
Bolting awake, his eyes wild, the number one pro balked in horror as blackened tendrils of power surged and squirmed all around him like electrifying eels, their wisps having snagged the potted plant, a terrified-looking centipede at Manai's desk as his best friend Azuhiro and Kengo gaped at him from Sir Night-Eye's office doorway. Oh no.
Toshi, what's going on?
I don't know.
He yelped, his disbelieving gaze narrowed at the crackling power that had gushed out from his right forearm and end.
"Wait, this is Black Whip."
He breathed, his eyebrows rising in bewilderment before he carefully regarded the things he'd unwittingly snagged.
I was asleep, dreaming,"
he murmured before with a yelp he was stood and looked around.
"What time is it? Shouta, is he—"
"Toshi," the golden-eyed man said carefully, "it's 10:30 at night. You've not eaten all day. We came back to my offices, and you promised you'd sit down, and, well, it's been a long day."
He added, his shoulders slumping.
We haven't gotten any news yet, but Tomra is on his way with food, and you're going to eat it, all right? Your body needs the calories, if nothing else, okay?"
Feeling his legs give out, the number one fell back onto the couch he'd clearly passed out on, and as he slumped, Black Whip receded, fizzled out, and allowed the furniture free. Oh God, they'd still not found him? How could he have collapsed? How could he be here when his husband when Shouta, his beloved Shouta, was still hadn't been, and it was nighttime already. He, sucking in a breath, his shaking hands scrubbing over his face, Yagi Aizawa Toshinori felt the despair he'd been trying to fight finally catch up with him. Now, what were they going to do? God. He was only glad that Nato, Hitoshi, and the other kids weren't here to see him like this. They were all tucked up at UA right now, some of them with their parents and younger siblings, just to be safe. But safe from what? From whom? Sighing, he didn't pull away as Marai sat next to him, what words of comfort he had to offer, lulling through the quiet of the office within an agency whose staff had chosen to stay there forms a flurry of movement as they continued to search, track, and trace any new leads they could find. He was grateful. He couldn't put it into words, really, but if he'd just been here, if he'd never left, then...
How will I make this up to him, to our family, Marai?
He breathed.
How can I make this right?
Ambling down one of the many secret entrances to the maze Overhaul had built for his organization to fester in, Rapakendo waved at one of the security cameras so that he could enter through the next triple-bolted, heavily reinforced door that Mimic controlled, his grin spreading as he held up 2 bags brimming with beer cans and snacks. He just hoped that his dumb face wasn't giving anything away.
Yep. What you doing here? Huh?
Sasuke greeted as he was let through, the lank-haired menace eyeing the alcoholic beverages keenly whilst he huffed at him within the 2 grey and otherwise featureless walls.
We're meant to be celebrating, aren't we?
He countered fluidly before shoving one of the bags at him.
I texted the boss to let him know I was coming anyway, so there's no need for you to look all paranoid as shit.
He furthered as his heavy steps echoed around the moderately lit corridors ominously. God, this place
Still creeped him out.
He felt like he was walking around those freaky catacombs he'd seen in an old horror movie once, and now that he was back, now that he was comparing this base, not to the grotty apartments he'd scurried into when he was homeless, or the darkened pits where he fought anyone stupid enough to challenge to temper his bloodlust, but to the Northern Echo Cafe, the youth center, and Taishiro's apartment. He felt even more guilty about allowing the teach to get pulled into this place, even if he was sure that the ridiculously intelligent, generous, and kind-hearted man was just the person little Eri needed.
Screw everything! Why hadn't he come clean about all of this?
If he'd only spoken to Yagi or Sornaidai, or the man he'd fallen stupid head over dumbass heels for, then maybe he could have had a reduced sentence for the crimes he'd previously committed. Maybe Overhaul had been lying to him, that they would just have thrown him in jail. It was too late to wonder about what-ifs and maybes now, though, wasn't it?
To make sure you were followed. Oi, I might not be all that slick like Harry, the boss, or Joy Boy, but I know what I'm doing. He sniffed. And besides, the pros didn't suspect that I'm anything to do with this. I'm getting all cozy with that overgrown butterball. Means that I'm beyond suspicion, and I put my phone in that box we rigged next to the nightclub I'm supposed to be working at, too, if anyone goes looking for me.
He smoothly lied. Not that he was worried too much about letting anything slip, because his plan, though crude, should do the trick. Nemoto was off duty tonight. Overhaul would be locked away in his lab doing fuck only knew what with Teach's blood, which meant that so long as Harry was snooping around the oblivious man he was in love with, he could ply Mimic and the others with drink, make sure that Sasuke stayed around to ensure their inebriation doubled, and then sneak off to grab the old man's granddaughter and the humble cook under the guise of taking a piss.
Oh, get you, Mr. Brace Shot.
The drunkard tittered after he fished out a can and cracked it open with a lopsided grin.
Oh, come on then. That Aizawa sure can't cook, you know. All it was missing was some good booze to go with the dinner he made us. Meh. Tabby's after marrying him or something, I swear, man. Yeah, that's if Tengai doesn't lay claim to him first.
Blinking, the grin he'd been wearing darkening a touch, Kendo mentally added the hunger quirk bastard to his shit list right next to Ejiki's name. Feh, like either of them were ever gonna touch the teach while he was still breathing. Sat in the room he'd been trapped in, Yagi Aizawa Shouta had made his peace with staying there.
Well, for the night at least.
Rationally speaking, he should be trying to rest, put his head down, and attempt to sleep. But he'd never been great at sleeping, and with Eri cradled in his lap, her breathing gentle, he didn't have the heart to move and disturb her as he sat upon the clinical-smelling, plastic-wrapped futon he'd been given, his back against the wall, and the book he'd been reading to her laying upon the floor. Oddly, this wasn't unlike his own childhood, was it? He, Takeo, Seiji, and Naoki hadn't been imprisoned and experimented on. Sure, but Itsu-san had locked them into their shared room at night, her alcohol-sloshed mind and bitter cold heart completely uncaring to their plight, so long as they stayed out of her way and didn't interrupt her drinking sessions. He really didn't want to think about that old bitch right now, though. No. He wanted to think of nicer things, better things, like how all of his care center siblings had beaten the odds. For Takeo was the master of Moto-sensei's dojo now, and wasn't short of women falling all over him despite being quirkless, whilst Tadeo loved working at Musutafu Aquarium and was cohabiting with Oboro, the pair probably looking to make a deeper commitment to each other sometime soon. A commitment in line with what Hizashi wanted with Seiji, the younger blonde's physiotherapy skills having led him into another promotion, which, with present Mike's dual income as teacher, pro, and DJ, meant that they were moving into a sweet little townhouse between the civilian hospital and UA, a house that they both wanted to bring adopted children into at some point. You could see the blondes being excellent parents, and with a veritable army of uncles and aunts to help them out, they'd still be able to enjoy their clubbing, raves, and festivals from time to time, wouldn't they? Then there was you and Naoki, who, as a pro team, were unstoppable. However, as lovers, they were adorable. He always enjoyed sneaking glances at them when they dropped by the cafe before going on patrol with Keigo, Rumi, and Ryuko to enjoy a meal or spend time with their community and the kids. To see the little boy who once cried that no girl would ever want a wooden monster like him be so openly adored by the gorgeous young woman who didn't even bat an eye at anyone else always made his heart glad. God, he prayed that they didn't think he was dead. It was bad enough that he wasn't with them, but knowing his husband, their shared group of kids, their parents, and the other wonderful people he'd somehow gathered around him, they were probably losing their minds with worry. Clang! Shit! Blinking, his eyes narrowing in shock before they widened in surprise, Shouta was stood as Rappa fucking Kendo appeared in the doorway.
You.
Shh! The other sniped whilst bucketing forward. Come on, Teach, we gotta go, there's not much time!